this summer. So if your son or daughter's home from college, ask them to message us. We're also looking for another producer. So great time to get into sports marketing or sports talk radio with the Out of Bounds Show on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. You can shoot us a text, the Mississippi Ag text line. Here we go, 601-885-ESPN, 885-3776. If you know of anyone that's looking for an internship in sports marketing / sports talk radio. And we're looking for a producer, too. All kinds of fun stuff going on in the world of sports and entertainment. Again, our Mississippi Ag text line is 601-885-3776. How about that? Right? So far, I've dropped all the numbers correctly on a Monday morning. Hope you're doing well. Hang in there. Live in the Bank Plus studio, the Out of Bounds Show. ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Your SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Go local, go with the home team. Go with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. They're working for you in 82 counties around Mississippi, from Kosciuszko to Tupelo, from DeSoto County to Pascagoula. Farm Bureau Insurance and favorites.com. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. So we started the show with the fact that we've got the Major League Baseball draft Wednesday and Thursday, and everybody wants to know how this will impact the roster, your roster going forward. It's only 5 rounds instead of 40, thank goodness. And, you know, Mississippi State fans, Ole Miss fans, LSU fans on the edge of their seats, who's coming back, and then who may not go to MLB that you signed last November. And what will your fall ball look like, and, of course, your roster in February. So we thought we would bring in Brian Satowski, National Scouting Supervisor, Perfect Game. He joins us on the Miller Lite guest line. And, Brian, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
Well, we're doing great. I would have to believe that this is a little bit different deal for you since it's not 40 rounds and it's 5 rounds. Major League Baseball decided to go this route. I think some because of the pandemic, and I also heard that Rob Manfred and baseball has wanted to cut this thing down, and I think they should. But we want to start with some of the Ole Miss and Mississippi State players that may or may not go. And I wanted to start with Anthony Servideo out of Oxford in Ole Miss. He played outfield year before last. This year he moved to shortstop. Where do you have him projected in the Major League Baseball draft, Brian?
Kind of in that second round range. I think that's a guy who, if the season had played out fully, had a chance to maybe sneak into the first round because of how well he was playing. But given this was really his first time playing shortstop in front of scouts, and this was kind of his first time hitting for power in front of scouts, we kind of wanted to see him do that all year to really jump way up the board. But given that he did it somewhat, I think second round, somewhere in there. Wow.
Okay. So, I mean, that's pretty darn good right there. You go second round, you're going to go 9 times out of 10, if not more than that. So you like him as a prospect and feel like, he's got a lot more to offer and a very talented young man.
Yes. Yeah, he was a player he's always been good. I'm sure Ole Miss fans have liked him since he got to campus. But it was, like you said, he was playing the outfield, he was playing second base. Both of those things are not playing shortstop in the eyes of Major League Scouts, in the eyes of teams. And while he'd always been a good athlete, he's always been a guy who could hit some, he didn't hit for a ton of power yet, heading into this year. So all of a sudden, you pair a guy who plays shortstop with a guy who's hitting for power, and bam, that becomes a totally new prospect than what he was, even last summer. Yep.
So Brian Satowski, National Scouting Supervisor, Perfect Game, they project Anthony Servideo out of Oxford and Ole Miss somewhere around the second round played outfield, but moved to shortstop this past year. Of course, Ole Miss was on a roll. I think they were 16-1 when everything went down. And so you would have to believe that he's gone. Now let's move to Jordan Westberg. Where does perfect game project Westberg this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Major League Baseball draft?
We have him 15 to 20 spots or so ahead of Servideo. I don't want to say that he'll go in the first round. I think there's a chance, but I still think it's more like a comp round, early second round type of look. So he could be in the same range as Servideo. It's just we have him a little bit ahead of Anthony on our board.
Okay. Why?
He's more physical. The tools are louder. He's a bigger dude as far as when compared to Servideo. It's a guy who at his size should maybe like not be as athletic and speedy and fast as he is. That kind of tool, that kind of athleticism given his size stands out. He's got a lot of arm strength. He's got a lot of raw power. He's shown improvements in his kind of hit tool. I think Jake Goutreau's done a really good job with him in that sense since he was in high school. I think it's a little bit just a tool to your profile, and even if there's a little bit more of a concern with the hit tool long term, you're still looking at a potentially higher impact type of guy given those tools.
Man, there is going to be a lot of what might have been in Oxford and Starkville to see. To get to see Servideo and Keenan and Foscue and Westberg finish it out, because those type guys get hot. You get the right thing going on the mound. There's no telling what could happen in late May and early June, but it is what it is. Very talented players at Ole Miss and Mississippi State. We're visiting with Brian Satowski, Perfect Game, National Scouting Supervisor. He's on the Miller Lite guest line. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Blake, I'm going to get through Keenan and Foscue and then let you ask a question. Okay, so Tyler Keenan, what does Perfect Game think about him, and where do you have him projected this week?
I like the offense, man. That's kind of what it boils down to with him is he's a 6'4", 240-pound left-handed hitting bat. I know he plays third base. I know he's done a better job there. I know that Ole Miss has turned him into a solid defender there. I just think in terms of professional baseball, when you start talking about the major leagues, he's probably a first baseman, which kind of hits the value a little bit. But at the same time, big guy, he's got a track record of hitting. He's not, a foregone conclusion to move to first base. I think there's a chance he can play third, give him the opportunity to do so. And I think we're counting on some more power showing up there. He's kind of in that late third, early fourth type of range for us right now.
Okay, so that's going to be a good week for him too. And then we'll go to Justin Foscue, Mississippi State second baseman. Where does Perfect Game have him projected this week?
So we have him precisely 2 spots behind Westberg. They're right in the same range, right in the same area for us. It's totally, I'm sure Mississippi State fans can say this better than I can, but you want to talk about 2 totally different players in Westberg and Foscue, and yet both kind of seen right in that same range by major league teams and by scouts for totally different reasons. Westberg's the more athletic, the toolsier, the kind of sexier profile, and Foscue's the guy who, might not have the tools, but he's always hit. He's got that kind of that safety and that hit tool that Westberg does not have. And it was kind of interesting. I was talking to a scout who has Mississippi in his coverage area, and I was talking about those 2 players in particular. And he was saying, like, if you gave Jordan Westberg Justin Foscue's hit tool, you might go 1-1. That player might be the best player in the draft. Because you're talking about Westberg having extremely, enticing tools, but the hit tool isn't a sure thing. It's not that high level hit tool projection. And Foscue's the other side of the coin. We know that dude's going to hit. It's just he's not a shortstop. He's not as fast. He doesn't have as much arm strength. He doesn't have as much raw power as Jordan Westberg. So if you were to combine those 2, then all of a sudden you're talking about a guy with all 5 tools who should play at a pretty high level, and that may be the first overall pick.
Wow. Perfect Game, National Scouting Supervisor. He is Brian Satowski on the Miller Lite guest line. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Real quick, Brian, let's just play this out. Let's say that Servideo and Keenan and Foscue and Westberg, that they're going to do really well over the next couple of years.
Sure.
And with Major League Baseball cutting 42 minor league baseball teams, with them cutting the draft to 5 rounds, I know that there's talk that they're going to add, maybe 10 more, 15 more, but they may keep it between 15 and 20. I'm not an expert, but I hope they do that. How could that impact them? Like, how could that expedite their journey to Major League Baseball because of what is happening and the business model's been rocked? But really talented players, how could this expedite their journey to Major League Baseball, Brian?
Well, I think if you're talking about eliminating X amount of minor league teams, and you're talking about, limiting where these guys kind of start off at. So these players, and I think Foscue's maybe the best example of a guy who should move quickly out of that group that you mentioned. It wouldn't surprise me if that's a guy who you're seeing in the big leagues late next year, early 2022. Assuming everything goes and we have Major League Baseball by that point. But and obviously that feels like assuming, given what's going on now. But I'm hopeful that we'll have Major League Baseball eventually. I just think if you don't have those super low minors, you don't have that constant progression from rookie ball to AAA, then you're talking about needing to take players who don't have to go to those minor leagues. You're talking about needing to take players who aren't going to lose their heads if they have to go to A-ball right away after they're drafted. And a guy like Foscue and a guy like Keenan and a guy like Servideo and Westberg too, with the college pedigree, with the SEC pedigree, with the coaching they've received, I just think it's eliminating some steps that those guys in years past may have had to take. So, you're seeing, and if they can do it, then all the better for them. It's hard to go from college into the minor leagues sometimes, and obviously, this as well as I do. The SEC a lot of times is like the middle minors. You wouldn't say it's AAA, but it's better than A-ball too. So it's just it depends on who can handle that adjustment the best, and I think that generally guys with SEC pedigrees who have hit in the SEC navigate that better than a lot of others. Nice.
Brian Satowski, perfect game, national scouting supervisor. He joins us on the Miller Lite guest line. Blake?
Yeah, Brian, Blake Scott here. I have 2 questions I want to hit on that you just kind of touched. The first is, you mentioned the SEC being like that. You could say it's a 1A, right? It's right below AA level, but not quite there. Better than single A or rookie ball. So when you look at it like that, speak on these 2 things. One, the heavy loaded SEC talent in the top of the draft, especially the arms like Asa Lacy, Emerson Hancock, guys like those. And then 2, how does the SEC's perception of being that level of baseball help entice high schoolers, especially this year, that otherwise would have gone in the 15th, 20th, 25th round? We saw one for Mississippi State yesterday, Kellum Clark out of Brandon decide. Obviously, the name State fans are really interested in is Blaze Jordan. Just talk about those 2 aspects. A, the heavy amount of talent coming out of the SEC at the top of the draft, and then B, how that may impact high schoolers' decision to stay in the SEC instead of go to the majors.
Well, the SEC is perennially the best amateur baseball conference, period. I think you could hear arguments for the ACC too, but in reality, it's the SEC every year that's churning out talent at a highest level and guys that are going the highest in the draft. So I don't think that it's, a surprise or anything that Lacy and Hancock and Austin Martin and guys like that and Cole Wilcox are at the top of the draft or, in the first round as SEC players. It's to be expected. If there weren't a bunch of first rounders coming out of the SEC, it would be a weird year. That's what would make it unique, is if it didn't happen. It's just kind of we're so accustomed to it. And in that sense, and agents do this too when they're talking about high school kids. And, there's history, there's numbers, there's track record that say, hey, and obviously there's variables like health. that come into play. But it makes sense a lot of the time to up your draft stock by going to play at an SEC school. There was a stat I saw the other day or something that, making up Major League Baseball rosters in 2019 was 47% four-year college kids or something like that, whatever the percentage was.
Wow.
And a lot of that percentage comes from the SEC. So when you're talking about kids who in normal year or regular years would have been in that 5 to 10 range, been in that 10 to 15 range, who are now opting to go to school, I don't think that that's necessarily as a result of the shortened draft, because a lot of those kids, even in a regular year, are going to go to school anyway because of the benefits of playing in the SEC versus taking 8th round money or something like that. So I don't know if – I think there's going to be examples of it that are directly due to the shortening of the draft. And Dylan Cruz from Florida going to LSU is one of those examples. But I think in a regular year, a lot of these kids that you're seeing announce that they're going to go to school, I think they would have gone anyway, just because it's a better choice a lot of the time.
Out of bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, visiting with Perfect Game National Scouting Supervisor Brian Satowski on the Miller Lite guest line, talking Major League Baseball draft and how it could impact Hail State and Ole Miss. It's Wednesday and Thursday, only 5 rounds this year instead of 40. What about, Brian, what about JT Ginn? Where do you project JT Ginn to go?
Man, he's kind of that wild card that I don't think anybody really knows about, other than maybe JT himself and his agent and his family. It's a guy who entered the spring with a fair bit of hype, and obviously you folks down there in Mississippi got to see him pitch as a freshman last year, and then what kind of talent that was when he was completely healthy. And we saw him quite a bit in high school, a guy who had better stuff than most of his class. It's the injury hurts, obviously, as it does anybody who would happen to, and I don't know. I really don't know. I think he's in play anywhere from that late first round into the second round into the third round. I don't know, to be completely honest with you, where that dude's going to go. I think he's a first round talent when he's healthy, but in a vacuum, we can say that Tommy John is now a pretty survivable type of surgery, and the numbers are good as far as guys who come back to full strength from it, but the number's not 100%. So you have to take that into account. It's just an interesting situation. I think JT's extremely talented, and selfishly, I'd like to see him pitching in college again next year. But I think there's a chance that he goes, in the late first, that comp round range. So we'll see.
And would you explain the comp round to our listeners?
Yeah, that just means there's 6-7 picks right after the first round before the second round that's called the competitive balance round, and that's where you see those, like a team who loses a star free agent who gets a draft pick like in compensation for it. That's what those picks are.
Okay. All right, so 5 rounds this week, Wednesday and Thursday. It looks like this could benefit MSU and Ole Miss as far as the players that they signed in November coming out of high school. It's going to benefit other teams too, Vandy, LSU. There's a number of them, Florida, and so on. We're visiting with Brian Satowski, Perfect Game, National Scouting Supervisor. Basically, it looks like Servideo, Keenan, Westberg, Bosque, Ginn, all gone this week. And then, of course, we'll keep an eye on signees from Bianco and Lamonis. Blake, you got another question for Brian Satowski with Perfect Game?
Yeah, real quick, Brian. So just looking at an interview that head coach Chris Lamonis did with Mississippi State, 3 other names that were on the list of potential draftees. Again, guys that for sure would have gone any other year, at least been drafted, not necessarily would have left school, but would have been drafted any other year. But now that you only have 5 rounds, tell me what you know about Tanner Allen, Rowdy Jordan, and Josh Hatcher. Do you see any of them going in the 5 rounds?
No. To make it a succinct answer, I don't know for sure. I haven't seen every single team's draft board to tell you if any of those guys are in play, in the top 5. But no, I don't expect any of the 3 to be drafted and signed unless any of them were interested in that post-draft up to 20 grand offer that teams can give, but that, obviously I wouldn't know that having not spoken to the kids. But yeah, no, I would expect all three of them to be back next year.
There you go. All right, that was fun. We may do this again a little bit later. Brian Satowski, perfect game, talking Ole Miss and Mississippi State, either draft-eligible sophomores or juniors, and then what could play out this week. It's going to be different, only 5 rounds, and we'll see what shakes out on Wednesday and Thursday. We do know that a couple Ole Miss and Mississippi State players are going to do well, make some money, and they'll be in minor league baseball, maybe not this year, but they'll definitely be somewhere fall ball. As Major League Baseball will get cranked up here in the next few weeks. Thank goodness. Brian, hey, appreciate you getting up early for us. Thanks for the insight. Hope you're doing well, and we'll catch up again soon.
Appreciate you having me on, guys. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. Brian Satowski, perfect game, and weighing in on the Major League Baseball draft. It looks to me, Westberg and Foscue are right there together. Servidio's right behind them. And then Keenan, they're all kind of bunched up together.
It looks like Ginn, Foscue, Westberg, and Servidio will go all on Wednesday, because I imagine Wednesday is like the first 2 rounds. I don't have the exact schedule in front of me, but they're going to go. I would be shocked if any of those 4 make it out of the second round.
Right.
So that's a very, like you said, concentrated dose. And then, as Brian said, probably another 2 rounds, and somewhere in the 4th, Keenan gets drafted. So
okay,
and then we'll see. Obviously,
Keenan's a big dude, so
yeah,
when you're that big and you can hit for power, and Satowski talking about Keenan, Blake going from third base to first base, and with his power and his physique, that scouts can fall in love with that.
Well, they're going to at least give him a shot. Right. Exactly. Like, let's just see if you can mold into what we want you to be. Yeah.
I did think his what he was talking about, how good a hitter Foscue is.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And there wasn't a lot of – I talk about this all the time with the SEC football, Bama and Auburn and LSU and Florida and Georgia. There wasn't a lot of oxygen in the room the last couple of years, Blake, when you had Jake Mangum and Westberg, and then some other players that were good but also wildly popular, like, Big Hit Mac and so on. But Foscue was a stud.
Yeah.
Just a kid that would come up big time and time again, but there was so much firepower?
Well, just high level ego, and not in a bad way, but just talented players that are name brands.
And one Mangum,
but big hit. You weren't going to overcome McNamee's hits,
right?
So no, I'm with you. I think Foscue, Jordan Westberg. I was told 3 years ago Jordan Westberg might be the best player on that team.
Right.
That was 3 years ago.
Right.
Obviously, he turned into something like that. Cohen said that. We could find the audio. He talked about Westberg. So that doesn't surprise me. Foscue's one that it's going to be fun to watch him, see how he develops.
John Cohen will join us at 8:30 on the Major League Baseball draft and SEC football this fall. And then Charlie Winfield, sports attorney, SEC Network. I may have to give him a hard time about Notre Dame, since that's where he went to law school. Actually, we will give him a hard time about Notre Dame. Hey, the SEC Insider Hit this morning was brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Go local and go with the home team. Go with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent.